guys, so I wanted to talk just real quick about, in my experience, the top tomato variety or two that I would suggest if you are brand new to growing tomatoes and you just want something that you're not gonna have to struggle too hard with, and that you have some assurance that you will come out of it with fruit and experience and have been able to enjoy it. There are some varieties that are very tricky, there are some that are very, very easy, and there is everything in between. So my first recommendation is your standard Roma tomato, because it is a good paste tomato, it is a good sauce tomato, it is a good tomato for fresh eating. It is one of the tomatoes that people are the most used to eating, so you're not even gonna have to worry about, well, I've never had this kind, like purple Cherokee. Some people love it. It's their favorite thing ever. My brother-in-law loves them. I tried them, I was really excited because everybody had told me, oh, these are amazing, they're nothing like the other tomatoes, and they just have this wonderful dark smoky flavor. Well, it turns out I don't care for those varieties of tomato as much as they did. And it was good, but it wasn't what my personal taste enjoys the most. I probably will always grow them because I have people in my life that love them and they are hard to come by. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to have one or two of these plants in a corner in your garden and be able to give something like that to people who like it and maybe don't get it very often, because it's a variety that is not typically carried in grocery stores. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. I can go into that in another video, but standard Roma. Everybody's already eaten them. Everybody knows they like them. They are good for fresh on top of tacos. They are good for spaghetti sauce. They are good for paste. They are a smaller size. They're like a medium-sized tomato. They fit in the palm of your hand usually. They're very easy to deal with. Aside from the fruit, they are what's called a determinate variety tomato, and I'll get into the details on that later, but essentially that means this will work well in a container. I live in a townhome. I am blessed to be able to garden in somebody else's yard on top of all my container gardening at home. But a lot of people don't have that luxury, and I'm actually growing some extras of these for neighbors in my area because all of the houses around me are in a position where they cannot put a garden in the ground, either because they don't have any ground or because of HOA rules that forbid it. So it's container friendly as well, and it won't get huge on you. Usually it maintains a pretty manageable size. It doesn't really require any extra pruning or care. The reason it's commercially developed a lot is because it's pretty disease resistant and pest resistant. It can put up with a lot and takes very little upkeep from you. You just gotta keep it watered and it will keep you in tomatoes. So, and it produces heavy. I could not believe how much fruit the last couple years I got on 2 plants, pounds of tomatoes. You do have to keep an eye out for pests because if the hornworms get to it first, it won't matter because they will enjoy all of it. They're amazing. Again, fodder for another video another time. But Romas would be my top variety I would recommend for beginners to growing tomatoes. If you really, really feel like you need to try something fancy also, I would recommend, and I have never grown this one myself until this year, so I don't personally have experience with it. I may, if I find different results, I will correct myself in another video. But I've heard great things from most people about Prairie Fire tomatoes. And the reason that I recommend this is because it is sort of a fancier variety. It has a very striking appearance with the multicolored skin. But it is essentially a fancier looking Roma tomato with a slightly different flavor. They're supposed to be pretty sweet. It is a compact semi-determinate, so it may get a little bit bigger than your standard Roma tomato will, but probably not beyond what's manageable. It is widely considered to be good for container variety, and that's another thing that you can use. If you look at lists of tomato varieties that are supposed to be good for growing in containers, a lot of those are easier to grow as well, and I don't know, there's probably a direct correlation between the fact that they don't need as much, so they grow well in containers, and the fact that they are just inherently easier to grow successfully. It may not totally be true. I did have one last year, Sunrise Bumblebee, that I was really excited about, and for some reason, I don't know if it was just the light that it had in my area or the weather that particular season, I did save seeds, and I will absolutely grow it again. I would like to think I would try to grow something at least 3 or 4 times before I completely write it off, because there are so many variables that determine why or why not you might be successful growing something. And those variables change every single year, especially if you're growing in different soil or if you're growing in a completely different location. Like this, I grew the same stuff in a plot in Nebraska that I grew here in Tennessee, and it grew completely different. Completely different. Like, you would hardly recognize my zucchini in Nebraska stayed like the size of a small bush, and it produced lots and lots of zucchini, and it was happy and it was healthy. Honestly, it stayed void of powdery mildew problems for a long time, which surprised me because I had kind of a shadier, damper area. Here in Tennessee, my zucchini plants look like something out of Jurassic Park. They are like 5 or 6 feet wide. They are amazing. So they also produce fruit even faster, and almost so fast I can't get to it in time before it's bigger than I'd really like it to be. So it's just a whole different experience. So if something didn't work for you in the past, don't necessarily write it off until you've tried it a couple of different times in different situations. So, recap, my current top recommendation varieties for a new tomato gardener in the spring of 2023 are Roma, standard Roma, and a slightly fancier Roma, Prairie Fire. If you absolutely feel you cannot live without a large round slicer tomato, I would recommend a Brandywine, and that's just because that's my personal favorite, and I haven't had a lot of trouble growing them. I know I've seen a couple people online say that they had a really hard time with them. I don't think I've seen that many people say it, but I've grown them every year, and they have produced well every year, and they are the best sandwich tomato because of their shape and their size. They can be a little bit watery, but if you blot it a little bit with a paper towel or a washcloth before you put it on your sandwich, that helps. They are a little lower acidic, and that's when I talked about how, like, my brother-in-law loves the purple Cherokees. They are a slightly more acidic tomato. They have a different flavor profile. I have found over the last couple years of growing some different varieties that I'd never had before, I prefer the sweeter, lower acid flavors. I do like them all. I've very rarely had a tomato I didn't like. Occasionally the ones from the store are pretty disappointing once you have experienced the joy that is a fresh homegrown tomato. Again, that's a whole nother conversation. People get very passionate about it, and I completely understand it. So the pink Brandywine or the red Brandywine, I think there are varieties of Brandywine that have the darker shoulders like the purple Cherokee does. I wouldn't go for those just because I know I already love the red and pink Brandywines. So they are an heirloom, but they are one of the handful of heirlooms that you can frequently find in all the big box stores, in grocery stores in the spring when they put out all of their seed packets. So that's another reason I would recommend them. And the Roma, not Prairie Fire. Prairie Fire, you have to go somewhere a little more specialized to get it, like Baker Creek or Botanical Interests. But the Roma tomatoes, again, it is I don't know, I guess essentially it is an heirloom. Heirloom basically means it's a stabilized variety, to my understanding, meaning it's true to seed. You can save a seed from it and put that seed in dirt, and it will grow a plant that will produce fruit just like the fruit that the seed came out of. Again, fodder for another video. There is no end of things to learn where garden stuff is concerned, and I think that's one of the reasons that I love it. But this is a very widely available variety. You could probably even find this one at the dollar store for the 3, 4 for $1 seed packets. So definitely give Roma's a try. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.